regular meeting, reconvening of our June 3rd, 2020. In attendance, we have Mr. Kelly,
Present.
DeCimero,
Present.
Solicitor Hayes,
Present.
Mr. Mitchell,
Present.
Mr. Jenkins,
Here.
Mr. Shields,
Here.
Ms. Kehoe,
Here.
and Mr. Cruciani.
Present.
Thank you. And Mayor Johnson.
Present.
Thank you. First item on our agenda, and we're going to let our councilman, Bob Shields, go over our contracts. Were emailed to all council members to look them over. They had a week to, any questions they had, or they could have got in touch with the committee, which was Bob Shields. And Bob has worked very diligently with myself and the police contract just to get this totally resolved. So I'll pass it over to you, Bob, if you would like to take it from there for us.
Thank you, Madam President. So as council is aware, we've been in some long negotiations with the police union regarding our collective bargaining agreement. Thankfully, we were able to come to a resolution. Obviously, there are some things that we did have to give up, but we were also able to obtain some good things for the borough. It's in our opinion, and also the opinion of our labor solicitor, that this is a good agreement. And you know, as I said, it's been passed around. We've had an opportunity. You have an opportunity to look at it, and we would ask that the council approve this at this time.
Thank you. Do we have a motion to approve the contract for the?
Are we open to any questions before we get into the motion?
You can do it on the question.
Okay.
When there's a motion and a second.
Do we have a motion to approve the contract for the Clark Summit Police Department?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Josh. On the question,
Under the question, the MOU for Patrolman Shedlock, why is that fine-tuned to his benefit?
well, is this a question that should be answered in executive session, or is this open? This is directed to our solicitor.
Well, if you want to break to, I thought that all questions with regard to this CBA had been ironed out with council because it had been circulated, and I didn't know that another executive session was necessary. If we want to break for an executive session, we can do that. It's up to the chair.
I can't say that I believe I would object to this going into an executive session. The executive session is for entering into an agreement with the police department negotiation team. This is a policy question Dave is asking that is separate from the two negotiating parties reaching an agreement.
Okay, so the question is the MOU part of this proposed collective bargaining agreement? Is that the question, Dave?
Yeah, I'm just curious as to know why it was fine-tuned for one officer and not maybe two or three others.
Well, I think Bob Shields and myself, we discussed this in our negotiating meetings, and we feel that we didn't want to make it to put it in the contract because the next officer that comes up, if he is not eligible for it, then it should not be made in the contract where anybody that comes up with the time that's put in and so on would qualify for that. it leaves it in the hands of council then. We would determine if they would be able to get the same benefits that Officer Shedlock would be getting.
But my question is, why is it fine tuned for him only? Why at this stage of the game is it fine tuned for him and specifically for him? That's my question. Why all of a sudden now is this for, what is it, 38,000 and change, I believe?
All right, that's already in the contract, though. I mean, and that isn't fine tuned for him. That's been in their contract. So that the only thing that has been fine tuned is how long you're with the police department and how, the age limit on it. And this expires at the end of 2021. So the next person that would come up for retirement would have to show council and of course our board that they would deserve it. It's up to us to make that decision then.
Can I interrupt, Kevin? I
Sure.
don't think, could you look at the document? I don't think Jerry's answering the question that Dave is asking.
Okay.
Because the MOU is the second document, Jerry. And that is the one about the vacation or the unused sick time.
Okay, but that's the one.
I don't know.
Go ahead, Kevin.
Go ahead, Jerry. No, go ahead, Jerry.
Okay. In other words, David, you're looking at the vacation time and the sick time. Is that what
That's correct. That's correct. Because it was specifically, and I read it in two different sections. It was specifically for him. And that's my only question. Why is it specifically for him as one individual and not for, well, I believe Eric Williams would be under that umbrella too, because he's probably got 25 years at least with the borough.
The second document's not part of the collective bargaining agreement. It's a standalone document.
Okay. But
So
my
that was
question, Bob,
negotiated between the parties, and that's what it's not in the collective bargaining agreement.
okay, but,
So,
but my question,
Bob,
but my question for that, Bob, is why was it fine tuned for him? And why was say,
oh, wait, technically, Dave, technically,
yeah,
if that's the case, technically, and Kevin, correct me if I'm wrong, a vote should be had on the collective bargaining agreement,
Right.
and then we're going to have to make another motion and second on the side addendum regarding the particular agreement with Officer Shedlock that Dave, that you are referencing, and but Councilman Shields is referencing, and then the appropriate time to bring this inquiry, Dave, would be on the question on that vote.
well,
Right, what's on?
I don't think we need
David,
to-
I
go ahead,
understand
Kevin.
what your question, on the question right now, there's a motion and a second on the proposed collective bargaining agreement. So really any questions should be limited to that. I unfortunately don't have the MOU, that I don't have the documents that was, I guess, circulated for today's meeting. But as Bob, and I have the proposed CBA in front of me, and that's not in there. So, and Bob Shields just indicated that the MOU is a separate document. So really on the question, is any issues related to the proposed collective bargaining agreement at this point in time?
Well,
And again, we can raise the issue separately.
I do, Kevin, and it's just to clarify what Dave brought up, which is in order for the memorandum regarding the memorandum of understanding with Officer Shedlock, that will not be ratified nor denied upon action on the collective bargaining. It will involve a separate motion. Is that accurate?
If it's not part of the agreement and it's not referenced in the agreement, then correct. That would have to be, I guess, approved. That would be approved separately by council.
I don't
Okay.
have an issue with it being added in and approved. I would just like to have my question answered correctly as to why it was fine-tuned for Officer Shedlock only. Why was no one else considered under that? Okay,
Well, are we, the MOU which you're referencing, Dave, correct me if I'm wrong, Councilman Shields, that's not part of the CBA which is before council for consideration, correct?
Correct. We have one
Okay.
agreement and
So,
that's
so,
one. And there's a second one.
so
too.
then we can
There's-
take that up, we could take that issue up when we're considering the MOU, Dave.
wait. All right, just for expediency, Kevin, leave it go. I thought I was gonna be able to get an explanation, but neither Bob nor Jerry could give it to me that what I'm the
Well,
answer.
Dave, no, the answer you're asking needs to be answered, but there needs, in order for the memorandum of understanding to even be considered or funding, somebody tonight needs to make that motion and second it, and there needs to be a vote on it
After this vote.
Okay.
after this vote.
So we have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye, aye. Our vote is
How
7.
about, anyone opposed, Jerry? Jerry, do you want to
Oh,
see if anyone's
excuse-
opposed?
Thank you, Vin. Anyone opposed? Favors have it 7-0. Thank you. Now, Bob, we'll move to the next, the MMO for,
MOU.
the MOU, I'm sorry.
Sure, the memorandum of understanding, and this is entered into by the Borough of Clark Summit and the Clark Summit Police Officers Association. And this is the one that involves Officer Shedlock.
Back to my original question, Bob. Why is it specifically intended for him?
Well, we have to first have a motion and a second, and then you can intercept it. Do we have a motion to approve the MMU?
MOU.
The MOU.
Oh, I apologize again, sorry.
I'll make a motion to approve it.
Okay, and do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Kathleen. On the question, now Dave, you can intercept your question.
Okay, Bob. Same question.
Okay, this was part of the negotiation. We discussed this. This terminology and this language, it's probably in the borough's best interest that if it's not in the collective bargaining agreement, but we did make an agreement and with Officer Shedlock regarding this, and that was approved, I believe, by the Clark Summit Police Officers Association.
Okay, and why is it in our best interest? Could you explain that to me?
Why is it in our best interest?
That's
In order
correct.
to try to resolve this matter without going to the cost of arbitration and the uncertainty of the litigation.
And also, if it was a matter of the contract down the road when we're not here, once it's in the contract, it's hard to get it out of the contract. This is why we wanted to keep it out of the contract and go by officer to officer. When they're ready to retire, that's when they take a real bird's eye look at it and see, is this something they really deserve? So,
It can be done by a case-by-case basis instead of having it in the
Exactly.
contract.
right.
In the
So-
contract, trying to get it back from them is a challenge. And I think
Exactly.
you understand that.
So Bob, just the next officer that comes, that approaches retirement, if it's Officer Williams, for example, we would just simply have another MOU in front of us that's been negotiated for us to approve.
We would take it by case-by-case basis. It wouldn't be part of the collective bargaining agreement. He wouldn't have a right to that.
And is there anything extra guaranteed in here as compared to what would have been normally given to someone that we would have agreed to?
I'm not sure the question. I know that under the contract, I think they're entitled to sick time and stuff like that.
Okay. Okay, so this is basically what you're telling me, Bob, then is this is a buyback of his sick time that he has right now?
Correct.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assumption of what we're trying to do here. And we're trying to get an agreement done in order to, do what's act in the best interest of the borough.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All
Aye.
opposed?
Aye.
Favors have it 7-0. Thank you. Next item on our agenda is the acceptance of our insurance quote. And Vince is chairman of our insurance, so would you like to lead off on this, Vince? We all got
Sure,
our
Madam
emails on it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Madam President, for providing me the opportunity to talk about this a little. Our insurance broker, Henkelman & Young, principally led by Jim Henkelman, has done a wonderful job the last several years, really providing aggressive, fine-tuned searches for the most economically efficient insurance policy that also meets our coverage needs. Last few years, we have gone with a company called McGowan. Our premium with the broker's fee of $2,000 was approximately $36,000, or around $36,000. McGowan came back several $1,000s higher. And right now, McKee is our lowest. I don't have the exact number written down in front of me, but I believe, Virginia, do you have that number?
Oh, I'm sorry. Give me 1 second. Yes, the difference is going to be in the email that's between the two. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. I was doing something else. I'm sorry. Let's see. Where is that email? Okay. The renewal from McGowan is $39,037. The new rate, the lower rate is going to be $33,000, and then there's a $2,000 fee for the insurance broker because it's not incorporated in it.
So it's about a $4,000 savings, but it's also, I believe, our current rate this year with McGowan was, I think, 36 plus the fee.
Correct.
So right now our net savings from this year to last through Jim Henkelman's work is taking it from $38,000 to $35,000. And by being able to go to McKee instead of McGowan, that's also a savings of, in net $4,000. So really we've had tremendous service provided to us by Jim Henkelman. And this is another example of it. Our insurance, in a difficult year, our premiums went down. So I'm going to make a motion to accept the quote, including the $2,000 service fee for renewal of the policy commencing at midnight, June 30th into July 31st. Virginia, I believe that's the correct date, right?
Correct.
For McKee, to go with McKee, to change from McGowan to McKee.
Thank you.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. On the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
All opposed? Favors have it 7-0. Thank you. Thank you, Vince. That was
Thank
a
you.
great report. Do we have
Thank
a
you, Madam
motion to
President.
adjourn our meeting of June the 3rd, I'm sorry.
I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting of June the 3rd.
Thank you.
I'll second it.
Okay, we're going to move on to our regular special meeting. And the first item on our agenda would be our public comment. And evidently, Virginia, we don't have anybody that has sent in any comments or
Correct.
request. Okay. First item is our CDBG. Virginia, if you could lead us off on that, please.
Yeah, we were supposed to have a public hearing in March and then the pandemic came along,
Right.
but they just wanted to go over the public CDBG public funds assessment. I gave you all a package before our meeting, and I gave it to you again before this meeting. We need to update this package. We really need somebody to go over it and update it with new programs and so forth. But in the meantime, the money will just go into housing if we don't assign it elsewhere. So we do have a place marker for it.
I have a question about this. If I can, Madam President, is that okay?
Absolutely.
Virginia, and maybe I have my items mixed up here, but the email I got about the audible sign repair to the Finance Committee, did that have to do with the CDBG grant program on on the road by Garrity's?
Manola Road.
Yes, that's a project.
Not Manola, but the
Lackawanna.
The
Lackawanna.
audible signals project is one that we've already assigned, I believe last year.
Right, but extra money came up is what occurred in this email, right? An extra 1,400.
Right, it was right. There's always some change orders.
So here, this is what my problem is that the state and the county goes around every year and they try to tell us, find money for something. We're trying to find money for programs we don't necessarily need just because it's money that we're trying to spend. We go ahead, we spend it, and then, and this is nobody's fault on this call, but we spend it, and then while we're spending it, we find out, oh, another $1,400 out of our pockets when we're already trying to cut every penny that we can to balance the budget. Oh, another $1,400 has to spend because you supposedly got this free money from the county and the state, and then, so can we, for the next year's CDBG money, can we get reimbursed on this $1,400?
But the $1,400 is not out of our pocket. That is out of the CDBG money, but it's out of our allotment of the CDBG money. So we're not taking it out of the general fund, but it's, you know, money that would have been $1,400 that would have been spent elsewhere in CDBG.
We need to take it out of the general fund and get reimbursed though.
No, it's being paid, it would be paid for as part of, from the county out of CDBG monies.
Okay, so it will be from the county.
Correct.
Okay, I still draw considerable concerns that on the validity of this program compared to the value of the taxpayer, but I appreciate it. Thank you.
And you know, you're correct on that too, Vince. The unfortunate thing is if we don't have a placement for the funding, it will go to another borough. So that's.
Oh, Jerry, I understand why we're doing it by all means.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you. Yeah, that's why we try to utilize it in our borough. That's the key thing. So we'll still keep chipping away at that too. Thank you though. Okay. So the next item on our agenda is the resolution for the 2020-10 CDBG.
We'll vote on this next week, but I just wanted to present it to you guys to know about it. This is for this year's money, and this is going into the placeholder of the Housing Stability Program until and unless we come up with something else. We have 5 years to spend it or we lose it. If we have a housing stability issue that comes up, that's great. If otherwise, we have to come up with another project for it. Okay, so the vote next week will be to assign it this way, and then if we find another use for it, they'll give us a new resolution to show the adjustment.
Okay. Thank you, Virginia. The next item on our agenda is Resolution 2020-11, the City Mart liquor license transfer.
Again, this would be voted on next week. I'm sorry.
Right, and I could give a brief explanation. The borough received a request from Summit City Market for an inter-municipal transfer of the liquor license, which was held by Blue Wasabi, which purchased from Blue Wasabi. Because the license is currently located in South Abington Township, a transfer is necessary for it to be used at the Summit Cigar location. Although there is currently a liquor license for the premises, that license is currently used in the upstairs space at a business which is separate from Summit City Market. It is the intention of the operator that the license in question would be used in the Summit City Market, which is located downstairs. Their council has requested a public hearing to be held. Hello?
Yeah, Kevin, I have
Sorry,
a question for you. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm. I can.
What is, I mean, I know where the place is and everything. I walk by it almost every day. What is the difference between the 6-pack side of the downstairs versus what they're trying to do?
Right, and that's what we have calls into. We're going to try to obtain clarification on that issue because, like you said, they're already servicing alcohol there. So I think the license that was held by Wasabi was a restaurant license. So that's what we need to obtain clarification on as to what it is they intend to use it for. And that would be why we would have a public hearing where they would have to present to council what their intention is. So under the liquor code, we have to have one public hearing prior to council voting on it.
Okay.
And in the event the council would approve it, it would then go to the Liquor Control Board for their approval. But we must vote on it within 45 days of the request. And I believe this request came in, Virginia, do you know offhand? It was in sometime in the first or second week. I believe it was the second week of June.
Yeah, it was, I'm guessing about 2 weeks ago.
So we were all
I'll
kind of,
confirm the
Virginia and
date.
myself, we're all scratching our heads a little on this one as to what the intent of it is. So that will be the purpose of the hearing, is to question them on that.
So I only have one major question. I don't think whatever the transfer of the license, if it goes through, will have any negative impact. But recent history has taught us that, say, like a material change of the deli and market to, say, a restaurant would have an increase in the necessity for parking. Will all that?
Right.
Will all of that still be covered? Let's say we approve this and serve our community and serve the small business owners, been supporting them. All of our otherwise in place regulations and ordinances will still protect the residential element surrounding it from the parking issue that's already come up, right?
Correct.
That's
If there's a
correct,
change in
Councilman.
use, they're going to have to go before the planning commission and parking would be
Right.
addressed.
And as you all recall, that was we changed the parking restrictions on that street, at least the side street, to I think address some of the concerns of the residents in that area.
Correct. Yeah, we did.
So that would not change. What street is that, Virginia? The
Clark.
Avenue.
Powell?
Clark.
Avenue.
Clark.
Right.
So we're basically, we
So-
don't have to do anything right at the moment other than schedule it for the July meeting.
Right.
July
We're going to open the
July
July
meeting.
meeting with
Public.
it.
Then we have our public hearing,
Right,
and
and
then we go from there.
And they should be, and then they should be prepared. They should be prepared to answer questions we have with regard to the intended expanded use of the that necessitates the liquor license transfer.
Yeah. Because I
And the
mean,
members. Go ahead.
other than putting another addition on there, I don't know how they're going to manage a restaurant atmosphere in that.
They'd get rid of the market, Dave.
Yeah, in that area, because it's very confined spacing in there.
Right.
You'd get rid of the market.
As Councilman Cresciani indicated, that it's possible that they would just do away with the market and make it a restaurant. But I don't know at this point.
Well, that's a thought. I didn't think of that.
And Kevin, I mean, this would all be subject to approval by the Pennsylvania Liquor Control Board, right? I mean,
Yeah.
this would, the
That's correct.
first thing, the
Right.
step they need to do is be able to transfer between the municipalities. And then
Right.
once they do that,
That's
then
right.
between the parties, it'd be Liquor Control Board and how the use and all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. So
I'm
we're
not
just
gonna-
allowing them to
But-
use the liquor license in Clark Summit.
But see,
Right.
on that same line, Bob, if it doesn't meet our needs on what they have to do, it can stop with us. It won't even
It
get
can.
to the LCB.
Right, we could
So-
stop it if we want.
You know, I mean, if we have
That's
enough
correct.
people come in and complain, such as what we had when we had the issue there with the bar, I
Right.
mean, that's another horse of a different
Yeah.
color.
Yeah, but it's not like
That's
we're
right.
giving them free reign on it. They're gonna
That's
do a
correct.
lot of oversight from the Liquor Control
Yep.
Board. Sure it's
Yep,
done.
If I
that's
could-
correct.
If I can add, there's two things to consider with this. First of all, if they did do a change to a restaurant, we would have to it would have to go before planning, it would have to go before zoning. They wouldn't just randomly be able to do it. But the other thing you need to know is that this is a restaurant liquor license, which is different than what you normally have for selling beer. So this entitles
Yeah, but it's
them
not
to-
different. It's not different from what they have upstairs.
No, but
Right.
this is for downstairs. So the question really is, like, if they wanted downstairs to sell beer, why are they getting a restaurant license?
Do
We
they
don't-
sell
Yeah.
downstairs at the present time? Do they
They,
sell food
they
They
there?
did.
Oh, okay.
That'd probably be part of the public hearing.
Kathleen,
Yeah.
can you
Question
speak
like
up? I can barely hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was asking if they sell food at the present time there and the downstairs.
Actually, they do, Kathleen. If
Yeah.
you want to take
Yeah.
it in a more broad view, they do. You can go in there and get things in the deli, just like you could say get on the
Right.
deli in the Morgan Highway or in the
Right.
deli
Oh.
section of Garrity's. And you can
I've
actually sit in there and eat. You can actually
Mhm.
sit in there and eat.
So could that be what they want the license for, is just to have it for with the food they already have possibly? Maybe?
Maybe, possibly.
So we'll have to find out, but maybe it's not for a
Right.
restaurant. It's for what they already have there.
No, but the type of license allows for things beyond just the sale of 6-pack of beer. So
Okay.
that's the
Like you could
key.
sell
I just
liquor
want
and
to,
stuff.
right, just want to keep you in mind that they're asking for, if they come in and say they're just want to sell 6-packs, why a restaurant license?
Okay.
Okay?
I mean, I don't think there's any reason for us to, after everything we've all endured the last 3 months, knowing all the protections ahead of us, in a property that's already zoned commercial, that already has a restaurant liquor license above it, not to at least allow for the transfer into the borough. There's many safeguards ahead of it. That's just my personal opinion. I don't see a roadblock being necessary at this step.
It actually.
Well, from what Dave was saying there, it sounds like the ultimate, whether they get it or don't get it, is not so much in the hands of the borough as it is in the LCB.
Exactly, Harry. That's where it will be coming from, yeah.
But what Dave was pointing out, if they don't get the borough's approval, they don't get past first
Well,
base.
yeah, they don't
That's
get
correct.
to the second base. Right, that's correct.
That's correct.
We've had a lot. We've had 3 months of government keeping businesses at first base, and I can tell you personally, I'm not going to participate in that kind of use of government power in this situation.
Yeah. Well, I think you're correct in your vision on that too, Ben. Thank you. So we'll be ready for next week then to,
Right.
will we have to have a,
We'll have the public
Public
hearing,
hearing.
right. The
Okay.
public hearing will
Virginia,
be
does
at the,
that clock start when you receive notice of this?
Yep.
Does that 45-day start
Yes.
there?
yep,
Yes. We're on the clock right now. So we have
Right,
to act
that's
on,
correct.
we'd have to act on it at the next meeting,
Hmm.
at the
Okay.
July meeting.
okay.
So we'll have to get information, as much, they better be prepared, they better come with enough information to, answer all the questions that we may have regarding it.
Very good. Thank you. We'll get that lined up.
Madam
next-
President, may I make one brief statement?
Sure.
And if I'm out of line saying this, I apologize. But Virginia, I think we owe it as a courtesy to the business owner to give them the direction to this YouTube link and tell them to listen to, minute 30 through minute 40 or whatever, so they know what they're stepping into during the public hearing.
And also,
I mean-
we may be in council chambers for our meeting. It's up to our solicitor if we can set that up
Right.
since as of Friday, we'll be in the green.
But what I meant, Madam President, was that the minutes won't be available to give to the person.
Oh,
So
gotcha.
referencing the YouTube link will at least allow the person to go in knowing what some of the concerns referenced tonight were.
Okay.
Their counsel is Kevin Smith. I'll advise them of that and all the issues that were raised here, the concerns that were raised and questions that were raised tonight. I'll make sure that he's
Thanks, Kevin.
Prepared to address those on Wednesday.
Okay.
Great.
Do we, on that same note, do we anticipate having our July meeting in the council chambers, or are we going to do Zoom again?
Really, that's up to council. I mean, Lackawanna County will be entering the green phase on Friday. So at that point in time, we can, it's up to council as to whether we want to have it in our chambers or to continue to do it virtually. If we do it in chambers, I think we have to give consideration to we have to put appropriate space between each member of council. The only thing that is concerning to me is that our room is so small. In the event that there's members of the public coming, if there's this presentation, we really have a limited space. That's my only concern.
Kevin, on the public hearing regarding the liquor license, you can bet there's going to be public comment, and you can bet that there's going to be comments and responses from their counsel. So should we do like a pre-registration to call into the meeting live, or how are we going to work that? Because we owe that to the public.
Absolutely. We
could
can. Go ahead.
do the, how about like asking the fire hall if we could use their banquet room?
That's a good idea, bigger
That would be
space.
preferable.
Yeah.
That's my
Worth-
concern.
Virginia?
I'm sorry?
I didn't hear what you said.
I said, how about using the banquet hall at the fire company?
Oh.
I can ask them if
Dave, do you
it's
think that would be
available.
okay?
I
do you
don't
think
see
that would
where
be
there'd
okay
be
with
an
them?
issue. It's gonna be
Okay.
on a Wednesday. I really don't think there's anything in particular going on a Wednesday, but Virginia could double check with Jay tomorrow.
I'll do that first
We
thing.
got to advertise. We have to advertise that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right. We'll do.
And I was
That's
just going to
my
add,
only concern.
for what it's worth, the AAJRB is meeting in person tomorrow and just requiring masks.
Right.
So
Right.
I don't see why not if we can have a large enough space.
Right.
Yeah.
I agree. So if we could do the fire hall, that would be my only concern. Is we have certain members with prior health issues or at higher risk, and I don't want to put anybody in harm's way. If we could, we could do. If we all wear masks and we're in a bigger space, then I think that would be the way to go. And anyone who doesn't feel comfortable, we'll have to make arrangements so they could participate, or has concerns about exposing themselves to, other folks, that we could have arrangements so they participate by phone.
Isn't the only rule under green that you have to wear masks exiting and entering the building? I don't understand how we could impose in a public forum. Anybody that wants to wear masks can wear them, but I don't understand how we could impose forcing people to wear masks outside of entering and exiting the building in a sunshine law relegated forum.
I don't think there's any particular rule on mask wearing under the sunshine law. I think under these circumstances, I would recommend we request everybody wear masks. And if somebody has a problem with that, then they can submit their comments in writing.
Either that,
or
Kevin, or
watch
we
it-
just
or
have
watch it-
one more month virtual meetings.
Right.
We're kicking
we
the
can do it
mask
that
issue
way,
down the
and then-
road, though, whether we do it next week or we do it in a month.
Hopefully,
Yeah,
by,
I have a problem with it. We're green. I have a First Amendment free speech problem with it now that we're green, personally.
What is wearing a mask? What does wearing a mask have to do anything with free speech?
Because I'm not
Safety
normalizing
precaution.
this type of government regulation on a behavior once the pandemic has hit the green space. Anybody that wants to wear one, I respect that. Any private business that wants to force people to wear it in their own private property, I respect that. But in a public forum, at what point in time does that become an unacceptable restriction on behavior.
Well, green phase doesn't mean complete normalcy, Councilman. It means following CDC guidelines, which includes wearing masks.
Entering and exiting buildings, right?
Right.
Entering. So if I can wear a mask entering and exiting the Borough Council building, I respect that. But if I don't have to wear a mask sitting at a restaurant, I don't have to wear a mask sitting at a Borough Council meeting. Entering and exiting, sure.
Well, I think council council is allowed to set its own rules in terms of the decorum for its meetings, and I don't think that requesting people to wear masks is imposing any type of infringement upon their right to speak freely or their civil liberties. But again, I'll defer to council on that. But my legal opinion is you're not infringing upon their.
So what would happen if a member of the crowd did? The police would escort them out?
Right. We'd ask them to exit the building.
And if they did,
that, or we
could escort them.
It's that, or we continue to do virtual meetings.
Maybe
We're
just
in
the essence of safety for one more month, maybe that'd be the correct thing to do, and then it would put everybody's mind at ease, because I would certainly hope by August everything will be certainly improved much more than it is now.
But Josh did make a good point. Are we just kicking it down the road? At what point in time does the government not have to have the ability to make people wear masks? I mean, what's the threshold? Who's the superseding voice? The state government, the local government? I mean, I understand.
And I would just contend, apologies, Vince, I would just contend that if in the interest of being prudent and being safe, we're going to hold the meeting virtually, then in the same interest of prudence and being safe, let's require masks. What's the difference?
Right.
The difference is one is a compulsory act to attend the meeting. The virtual attendance can be had without the compulsion to wear the mask.
Well, excuse me.
I have asthma. It's going to be uncomfortable for me to sit there with that mask on for those hours. And I'm only using that as an example of a health exception. What about, now I'm a councilman, so if I have to wear it, I have to wear it, but what about the people in the audience? How long are we going to normalize, now that we're green, this behavior that we're going to have compulsive mask wearing?
Well, that's really,
at what point does that end?
When we're out of the green phase, the green phase is to follow the CDC guidelines, which includes wearing masks.
Well,
strong recommendation is
if you can go into a restaurant and enter and exit, and I'm not saying we shouldn't enter and exit wearing the mask. I'm not disagreeing with that guideline. But if you can sit at your table and we have to socially distance at this meeting anyways, why do we have to wear masks?
Well, that's my recommendation.
So Gary's saying something. I think Dave makes a good point. I mean, to resolve all these conflicting issues, why not have one more virtual meeting? Especially if there's going to be a number of people with questions regarding this liquor issue.
I personally agree with that as well. Kevin, could you manage the people calling in if they register ahead of time for public comment?
Right, we could do that just like we did for the interviews, where we just have to make a good concerted effort to make sure that the folks on Park Street are aware of that this issue is coming up, so that if they have an interest in it or they want to voice their support or opposition, that they are aware of it. So I can definitely.
What are we going to say?
Virginia, do we have the borough crew post Clark Avenue and the area surrounding that, or is that not appropriate for this?
I don't believe it's necessary for us to do so.
Okay, all right.
I know the Liquor Control Board requires that they have postings there for them.
They post it for them.
All right. If we're going to make a motion to hold it virtually, then we owe this to Kevin, because Kevin shouldn't have to have this on his shoulders to decide it arbitrarily. We need to set a deadline that you can register for public comment on the liquor control hearing in a call-in capacity, limited to a certain amount of time. I'm going to make the motion that within a 24-hour registry of the meeting, so by 7 p.m. on Tuesday, you have to either call, email, or write to the Borough Council to register for a 5-minute call-in time that will be administered by the solicitor during the public comment for the liquor, on the limited portion of the liquor control hearing. Everything else, as in previous months, will be questions submitted in writing.
I have a question here. We're into the work session now. Do we make motions at this? Do we have the ability to make motions or no?
This is just a
Oh, you're
procedural, it's a procedural issue, and I think that, yeah, we don't take votes now, but
Okay.
I don't think there's any opposition. I think that's a good idea on the part of Councilman Cruciani, and unless anybody disagrees with it, Virginia and I will make sure that the folks in that area and elsewhere are aware of it. And I will, as long as they give me their phone number, I can manage them coming in, admitting them into the meeting in an orderly manner.
I agree with what Vince
And then-
said. I was just asking the question, are we making any
No, you're
motions?
right. You're right, Dave. That was
Okay.
a correct
Yeah.
observation.
No,
Right.
I think Vince has a very good point, and it takes the stress and strain off of you as well as it does Virginia, because if anybody has an issue, they need to call before 24 hours before
Yeah.
and
definitely.
voice what it is. Number one, it gives us a heads up on it too.
Right.
Oh, well, Dave, they don't
So,
have
yeah.
to necessarily voice what it is. They just have to register
Yep.
to speak on the limited subject of the liquor control. Anything else, any other subject matter, they have to list in writing, as we did
Okay.
previous months.
And what do we
Right.
need from them in order to do this? We need their phone number. Do we need a name and do we need an address?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, yeah, you would want their name and address, and for my purposes, I just need their phone number. Nobody else will see their phone number besides me, but I'm not going to admit somebody to the call unless they know they recognize their number.
Gotcha.
Because if they're not residents of the borough, it really doesn't matter what they have to say. They need to be residents of the borough.
Right.
So their name and address are very important.
Sure.
Dave, I don't disagree with you, but I want to make one caveat.
Okay.
If they are a business owner in the borough, they also
Okay.
have the right to comment, even if they don't reside there.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, resident or
agree.
business owner in the borough.
Okay.
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 I just want to add a comment in regards to that. I am 2 blocks from that business and I hear all positive, good things. I just want to put that on the record that all my neighbors love the place, the upstairs of the business. So I haven't heard any negative on my end anyway. So I just wanted to add that, to say something positive about it too.
Very good.
Mhm.
Okay. Thank you, Catherine.
Thank you, Councilwoman Simrel.
You're welcome.
It's always good to hear that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, the next item on our agenda is a replacement for John Ressakar on the seat for our planning commission.
Yes, John Rassakar, who has been on the planning commission, I believe it was 10 years, has stepped down. Councilman Shields has spoken to Carol Rubel, who we just appointed to our zoning hearing board, but he was questioning whether it wouldn't be more appropriate for her to be on planning commission. She has agreed that she would be thrilled to be on the planning commission. You have her resume and information in front of you. Next week, we will, if somebody makes the motion, we would vote on this. So I wanted to
Virginia,
give
can
you that.
can you speak closer to the microphone? As you're moving
I'm
back,
sorry.
you're getting less and less.
Is this better?
That's a little better. Thank you.
Okay, sure. I'm sorry. I just said that we would vote on this next week if everyone's okay with it.
Madam
Sure.
President, may I make one recommendation?
Certainly.
Councilman Shields, thanks for making this happen. I think since we are making this move, we should be prepared next week to discuss and vote on which alternate from the zoning board will get elevated from alternate to full member. And if there is a seniority preference, as we've done in the past, that should be known, but we should also ask both alternates if they're willing and able to be elevated from alternate to full member.
I think there's 2 alternates on the zoning hearing board right now. So,
No, there are, Bob. So one time we had elevated the more senior one in terms of tenure and serving to the main position. Another time
well, this
we
is
didn't.
not
So what
from, I'm sorry.
go ahead. I'm sorry, Bob.
This is actually not zoning. She's going to move from zoning to planning.
She's
there-
No,
moving
I
as
know,
an
that's-
alternate on zoning. She's an alternate on zoning.
Oh,
Alternate.
she's an alternate. She's not a full member.
No,
She
she's
is not a full member on the zoning, no.
Oh, okay. That solves the issue. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you. Okay, and the next item is our shade tree commission.
And I apologize, that's off the, that is not an issue anymore.
Okay.
So that would be it, other than the agenda for next week.
Okay,
Oh, I'm sorry, there is one thing. We got some bids in today for 2 different manhole projects we need to do in town, and I just need to open them on the record so we can vote on them next week. So if you
okay,
don't mind, I am opening them right now. I'll read the bids. In both projects, we only had one bidder. I did solicit from 20 different companies, but we have only Lindy Construction bidding, and I'm looking at manhole project number 2 first. Hang on a second. And the bid came out to $40,540 for manhole project number 2. Now for manhole project number 1, it's Lindy Construction as well. And this project is $29,310. So I need to run over these bids now with the engineer. I think that they're a little higher than we expected. We might have a recommendation to rebid it.
yeah.
So I'll give you copies of these tomorrow. I'll scan them and email them, and then I'll get the recommendation from the engineer and forward it to you guys for discussion next week, okay?
Okay.
Okay.
I'm sorry, one other thing though. We had an email today, I believe, from Shannon Brown at the Planning Commission regarding a gentleman who passed away, who was
Yes.
chairman for many years, a founding member of SAPA. I don't know the gentleman, Mr. Peter Northup, I think his name was. He's from the Abingtons up here. And I
Yeah,
guess
he's-
Dalton.
And Shannon mentioned something about possibly doing some sort of proclamation. I guess he was a very involved with that, and that's benefited the borough. So I don't know the gentleman, but it sounds like he was a pretty impressive guy, and he was involved for a long time with SAPA and did a lot of good things for our community. So I'm not sure if that's something we can do or if we've done in the past or not.
Maybe that's something that Jerry could have for the meeting next week and read it off as a point of order, and then we can present it to the family.
That sounds like a nice thing to do.
I
Yeah.
think so too.
I agree with you there, Bob.
We'll
Madam
definitely
President,
work on that.
may I make one comment about the pothole quotes, the bids?
Manhole bids.
Manhole, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Well, one, I'm going to have to abstain from that vote due to a business conflict, but I would like to encourage something when you and Bob Nagley look at it, Virginia, which is when you're comparing them to the budget and running the specs, don't look at them in total, look at them in isolation in case we can accept one of the 2 bids
Oh, absolutely.
and reject one.
Mhm.
The other comment I would like to make is, particularly in my neighborhood, the DPW has been doing stormwater work, and not only myself, but also the neighbors that have spoken to me about it really want to pay a tremendous compliment to the professionalism and diligence shown by the Department of Public Works, especially led by Dave Thorne, but all the men on the crew that were working on it. Really, truly exemplary conduct and work product there.
I will be sure to pass that along to them.
And you know what, Vince, you can also mention to any of your neighbors also, any letters that they would send into the borough, this would go into our DPW, their files. And it is always nice to be able to have something in writing, and that's something that they would definitely appreciate too. But thank you for the the good feedback. That's always nice to hear for our DPW. Okay, so do we have a motion to adjourn?
No motions? We can just adjourn.
Okay, I want to thank everybody for your attending tonight. So have a good day and we'll see everyone next week.
Take
Thank
care.
you.
Have a nice
Okay.
Thank
vacation.
you.
Kevin.
Thank you.
You too. Take care,
Okay,
guys. Good night.
Kevin, enjoy your vacation.
All right.
Thank you. You too.
Virginia,
Bye.
Carrie, you still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, you know what I noticed on the contact list there? You should probably